We're looking for this to be interactive, so there will be a Q&A at the end. So please save those up and let's get interactive. So I'd like to call to the stage Tanya Adams. Let's welcome Tanya Adams, who's and Tal Panel, who's Director of Product Management at Eris. And a big welcome for the newest woman in technology, Debbie Piccolo, SVP of Operations for the West So let's start by having each of you talk a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are to inspire our room. Tanya, this is the only time we'll go in order. Tanya. Yes, that's right.
Hi everyone, my name is Tanya Adams and I started in this industry in 1999. I was started as an IT help desk, and then my best friend and I decided that I'm going to date myself. We wanted to be like Carrie and Samantha from Sex and the City. We wanted to go to the East Coast and take over the world. I was recruited by Comcast, where I started as a network engineer. I did that for a few years, and then I had an opportunity to move over to the Comcast digital voice platform. Did that for a few years, and then I took a 360. I went into project management, and then I decided, okay, I've had enough. And then I had two awesome leaders who approached me to be the leader of an operations team, which I have been there since 2010.
Great, thank you. Tal?
Hi everyone. I have to say I'm super excited to be on this stage. I joined this industry 10 years ago, but I only started coming to these events maybe 7 years ago. And the first time I got to this event, a friend brought me to this room, to this Tech It Out event. And I was like so inspired just to see so many women meeting together, trying to work together toward common cause. So this means a lot to me being on this stage today, just a few years after that first time here. I started my career as a computer engineer, so I'm a double E in computer science. I like to build things. So Lego stuff, electricity related stuff, that's what I love, that's what I do. I started as a designer for IBM, building certain chipsets for CPUs. And then I moved to a company that was called Big Band back then. It was a startup based in Israel, where I'm from. And I did chip design there, I did some system work, and then I started to grow up and ask more questions, ask, why do we do that? Why do we do that? Why do customers ask for this? So I guess I was asking too many questions, so they promoted me to be a manager. And after a while being a hardware manager, I became a product manager for the product that I actually helped building. After about a year after that, I was part of an acquisition that my company went through. So Big Band was acquired by Eris. And Eris has been a very big change for myself and also for all my team members. So I remained a product manager within Eris, which is what I do today still, and enjoying this tremendously.
Good, thank you. And where did you come in from?
I come from Israel,
yes.
So I live in Israel. I flew in. I fly to the US quite often. I cover international markets, European, Cal, APAC, and also some of the products that we market in the US. So I'm kind of all around.
Tal, I think we need to get some travel tips for you.
Yeah, I think she gets the award for the longest trip.
Exactly. Debbie?
I am Debbie Piccolo. I'm Senior Vice President for the West Region. I started my career 30 years ago. August 10th was my 30-year anniversary in the industry. So I started in '87, and in '87, if you wanted to get into the cable industry, at least in the state of California, you had to get in through a entry-level position. I could not go in from the level I was at. So I was at a hobby company. They were named Ravel. I was a director of product there. they were moving to Morton Grove, Illinois, and I found myself having to look for a job. Did a bunch of research. Cable industry was up and coming. Now, mine only had like 40 channels. It was very, very different then, but it was a very fast-growing industry. And so I interviewed and started as a direct sales representative, went from a salary job to a commission-only job, and was a top sales rep. Needed to do that, and became their director of marketing within about 90 days. And then worked my way up, tried to figure out, okay, where did I want to find my place within the cable industry? And actually, it wasn't marketing where I wanted to be, or sales. It was more so on the operations side. So I moved up through GM positions, started consolidating the Southern California market, continued to move up in various GM and VP positions, VP of operations, then SVP, where I had all of it, engineering, marketing, all of the different groups reporting to me. And that is where I am today, 30 years later.
As the woman in technology.
Yeah, woman in technology, yes.
Exactly.
Been a humbling week.
So, question on your career moves. Have any of you done a lateral move? Have any of you done a lateral move? So I'll start. I have. And it was one of the best things that I did. And I see actually my old mentor out here, Neil Sullivan. He was the VP of operations in our cable company. And I was in the corporate office. And I said, I don't have any field experience. And so I raised my hand and said, I'd like to be in operations. And they designed a path for me, and I made a lateral move out to the systems, and best thing I ever did. So please, don't be afraid of a lateral move.
Or even in some cases a move down if it's going to get you back into
Exactly.
a functional department that you're interested in.
Yeah. Neil had to give me a car
You're right.
in order to make that a pure lateral move. But have you done that? Have you done something like that? Where have you taken risks in your career progression? Can you think of one?
Yeah, I think the biggest risk I took was actually coming into the cable industry. I had a job offer at Mattel and a job offer making commission only. So a director of marketing job offer at Mattel, the big toy company, or this going commission only. Different. That was by far the biggest risk I took, but the best thing I could have ever done for my career, by far.
Yeah, I had a moment of risk-taking myself when my company got acquired. I was head of hardware engineering, and I loved doing engineering work. And they told me, you should go to PLM, you should go to product line management. And I was like, really? I want to build stuff, I want to do technical stuff, I don't really want to go to events and dinners and stuff. It's not for me. I do the, I'll do the wires. And I got more than a gentle push to go to that direction. And I think about a month or 2 months in the job, I realized how is it the best thing that ever happened to me. I love the fact that I get to mix between the actual technology and the customer side, which actually means meeting a lot of people and trying to find solutions to their problems. So that combines the two things I love to do most. So.
Right. And Debbie, you went from salary to 100% commission.
Yeah.
That's risky.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I was going out on my own. I was living with my parents then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other comments on?
Well, I took a lateral move as well, and early in my career, I couldn't understand why people tell me sometimes you have to take a move on the same level or step back, just as we're discussing. And I would say it was the best advice that I could have ever gotten from the leaders that helped me take that. It allowed me an opportunity to see a different side of the business, had I stayed in the team that I was with, that trajectory. And sometimes, yes, we work hard and we always want to be recognized for our hard work and everything that we're doing. But when you look at the bigger picture, it's not always about getting to that next level. It's what's going to make you well-rounded in the industry to be that leader that no matter what it is that the company is marketing or supporting, you have some type of knowledge of that.
Right. I was also the first person in our MSO to ever have a van as a company car. That dates me a little bit, I know. So what I'd like to talk about next is let's jump down to the pay equity issues. Interesting topic for us. And in 2017, Accenture put out a report saying that tech immersion could reduce the gender pay gap by as much as 5% by 2030. That's a lot of years from now. Any recommendations that you would have for leveraging technology or other measures to achieve pay equity? Let me first say that I was kind of depressed by 5% by 2030. So perhaps you need a new study.
When we were all around the club talking about the survey results, and when I first read it, I thought it was a typo. Are you telling me it's going to take 13 years for women to have the same pay salary as our male counterpart? It's depressing and it's very disappointing. And I think one of the things as we look at the pay equity and what companies can do, the biggest thing is awareness, but awareness to where you're not having an unconscious bias against women because we do have a voice. Also, I think that making those tough decisions and having those tough conversations, how is it that I get to where my male counterpart is today? I have the same education experience, I have the same work experience, but why am I so at the bottom of the pole? And I think the third thing is I feel like companies need to, whether it's doing something internal or hiring an external audit agency to audit the pay gap. And every year, start putting funds aside to bring women up to the equity pay that our male counterparts are doing.
I completely agree with everything Tanya said. I think also it's incumbent of us to mentor, right? And let's get more women in leadership and business decision where they're making the business decisions as well. Let's get more women in leadership positions. I think that's what our biggest challenge is at this point in time. And I think that, mentoring is absolutely critical to that, helping them see that they can get there. Sometimes confidence is something that women tend to pull back on. And I think we just need to get out there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, first of all, being in tech, for all of us here in Tech It Out, is a good thing. Because in tech, you're well compensated about, on your skills. So to some extent, this already solves some of our problem, hopefully. But on the other side, when you read all those books about women in the workforce, like Sheryl Sandberg and others, they talk about the fact that women are afraid to ask for a raise. They're self-conscious. They don't think they deserve it. They're afraid. They don't know how to approach their bosses. And the answer to that, in my opinion, is the support system that we as women, form for ourselves. So a good example for that would be that in Eris, my company, we established an Eris Women Business Network. And I was one of the founders. We now closed the first year of our operation and we're going strong, got over 600 something members. And this has been super critical for myself, as a personal goal to establish a support system for women in our company so they'd be able to grow more and achieve more. And that support system includes mentoring, infrastructure, includes just other types of connections between women and webinars. But I know that every time I needed to go to my boss and talk to him about a raise, about my compensation, I was so scared. I was just trembling. And speaking to a colleague was a woman. Was a woman. But we can't do much. The fact that we're women help us connect to one another and get tips from one another better than we do for in general. So the support system for women in our industry is so critical for that. So that women can actually, reach out to a mentor and ask them, hey, how do I position it with my boss so they understand the importance of it to me? How do I position it in such a way so they understand my value to the company and to the industry and compensate me accordingly?
And asking for advice on what should that position pay, right? Don't be afraid to ask. I could not agree more. Also, going to your boss, woman or man, and asking them, am I paid the same as other people in my same job? Yeah, but you should ask the question because it keeps it on, it definitely keeps it top of mind.
Yeah,
I've done that over my career.
Again, dating myself, I can remember when there hardly was an HR department.
There was-
cable company.
That was just 95. 1995 is when we actually got HR in the cable industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Amazing, amazing. Well, let's hope that we can do better than a 5% closing of the gap by 2030. That's kind of depressing. And speaking of depressing, and speaking of feeling angry and feisty, what a horrible couple of weeks it's been for women in the news. And women, what can we do?
We gotta speak up. I mean, I think when you look at what's happening now, the fact that these women are coming out and things that happened 20, 30 years ago yesterday. So I think it is absolutely speaking up. It was bad in the cable industry prior to HR, really, really bad, when I was just starting out in cable. And it is making sure too that you are speaking your mind. If somebody is doing that behavior to you, it's speaking up right then and there and saying it is not acceptable, I will not tolerate it. And then now, obviously, you go to HR as well. But then we didn't have any HR wasn't around. So it's crazy. I think speaking up and not being afraid to say no, that's unacceptable, and making sure that that you're loud about it.
Share with others.
Tal, you have the women's network you were talking about.
Exactly. I mean,
Or women's-
the women's network is a solution for a lot of these issues, right? If you can go consult with somebody on what do I do, makes you feel much better immediately, and then maybe you can think about it together and try to solve the problem. Being a woman in tech, I'm almost always the only woman in the room. And the amount of stories I can tell you, I mean, to be honest, it's nothing, as bad as what's in the news right now, but it's always the smaller comments on, oh, you're a woman, then you must understand this, or can I get a coffee, or, people mistake me for the secretary all the time. So that happens all the time, and again, it's not as bad as, what we're talking about here, but just raising awareness to that, approaching those people, maybe, not necessarily publicly and, loudly, but maybe sometimes on the side would be better fitting, so they understand that they actually are hurting you or, demeaning you in some way. That is super important, because all of those, all these men actually have daughters and wives, and they would not want them to be treated like that guy just treated you, right?
I agree with that, and I can relate because most times you're really the only female and I'm getting, oh, did you take notes? I was like, oh, I think that's why we have admins, or you could have taken the notes just as good as I had. And I think the bigger thing too is we have to be examples for other women. Not everyone is as bold as we are to speak up for ourselves. So when we lead by example and talk about the tough times, not just the good times, women need to see that we struggle just like other women, that may be below us, but have a voice and learn how to use your voice to speak for so many other women who don't have a voice, and make them feel that they're welcome, they're embraced, and they should never be afraid to tell their story, no matter how hard it is, or if they feel like they're the only one that's been through a situation, because 9 times out of 10, when you start talking about it, we all have the same story.
That's right, that's right. So how many of you are familiar with Girls Who Code? Yeah, awesome organization. And WICT is partnering with Girls Who Code right now, and they are, well, what do you think? It's a STEM program, obviously. That they advocate for girls to learn coding and get into the technical fields. So thoughts from you on how we could advance STEM education?
I think the biggest thing is we need to start early. Oftentimes, there's so many stereotypes about women in STEM because no one is really talking to them about it. Every day we use our cell phone, and I have a niece who she's always on Twitter and Instagram. And I said, do you realize that there are engineers behind making all of this? And when she comes to visit me, we buy robots, we build things together to get her interest. And also, she always say, oh, TT, I can never do your job. I tell her, yes, she can. And I tell her the hard times and the struggle, but I also let her know the benefits that come with that struggle. If we're not willing to work hard, you're not going to be able to have a voice and be proud of the things that you accomplish. And I also think that it's important that we look at the inner cities. Not everyone is as privileged as some people. How do we reach out to those young men and women to get them engaged? And for me, I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, and one of the charter from our international president, for the next 4 years, we are partnering with high schools to teach them about STEM. So once a month, we volunteer our time. We bring engineers in from the National Society of Black Engineers that build power solar cars. We do things because a lot of them are not even aware, and the schools need to help us as well. They need to start advocating for STEM because we need to be the future of what's coming.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think it's getting out in the communities. We've done a lot with STEM over the last several years with the Science Center in LA. We've done robotic programs in Hawaii and in LA, and it's getting the youth out, and it's events that we hold, that we fund, showing them how fun tech is, right, and really getting them involved. So I think community involvement's big. I think also just getting into the lower income communities, right? So we just, in the last couple of years, and Comcast has it as well, have launched a low cost internet, high speed internet service that is available to low income families. That's just $14.99. We need to also get them online and being able to use the technology that's
Exactly.
Yeah, I do volunteering in that as well. I volunteer for the First Robotics program in Israel, and so I judge contests, and I try to encourage the ladies in the teams to stand up, speak up, and be dominant in the group that is always mostly kids, men, kids. The other thing that I do is I volunteer also for She Codes, and over there we create different projects that we contribute to the community, but we take young women from that are engineering, young women that just finished their engineering school, and we tie them into those projects so they can get experience and actually get a feel of what it's like to be part of a big project. And I manage those projects so that in the end we actually give something back to a nonprofit organization. But we also teach those younger engineers how to work in a team, what are the right processes for. And they get the benefit of it all. So that's super important in my opinion as well.
Exactly. And the cable industry does a lot of outreach around these STEM programs and working with children and working with universities and colleges as well. At the Cable Center, just yesterday we had Julian Brodsky from Comcast come and speak to graduate students in the University of Denver, and he had them enthralled. Well, Julian tells pretty good stories about the beginnings of Comcast.
1963.
Yes. But it was so cool to see him imparting his wisdom and really selling the industry to these young people, and how creative and how innovative our industry is. Because really, not a lot of people know that. And we need to do a better job of that, both for young women and young men. So we'll keep working on that. Exactly. So the PAR study, which is also called the 2017 Name It Quick Diversity Survey, I call it the PAR survey, was talking about the key lever of increasing representation of women and people of color as being retention. Retention. How do we retain the folks? What's your opinion on that? Do you believe it's mostly retention, or
I think it's recruiting as well. I think it's bringing women and people of color into our business, right, into leadership roles. So I think it is that, and then obviously it's retention. I do a lot with networking groups. We've got quite a few different, we've got a Hispanic, we've got an Asian, quite a few, and that I think has really brought a lot of the communities together. I think that anytime you're doing hiring, you should ensure that your hiring slate includes people of color, women, that it is a diverse slate. In the end, you pick the best candidate, but make sure at least that you're looking at a complete slate of candidates that includes a lot of diversity. I think very, very critical.
I agree. A lot of it is about retention and recruiting. At Comcast, my recruiter will tell you, I always say, Justin, where are the women resumes? I said, what are we doing to recruit and market women? So whenever I have an opportunity to see women, I always kind of talk about Comcast, talk about the great things that we're doing, because I feel like I'm recruiting at all times. But I think for me, the bigger thing is to keep women. What can we do to ensure that once they're in the industry, that we're continuing to elevate them and not just keeping them status quo? Stop making assumptions that, oh, she's female, she can't do this. Give us the same opportunity on the board seats as we do with our male counterparts. Don't make assumptions of what we can and cannot do. And let us have a voice. Women have a great voice. I'm here to tell you. We have an awesome voice, but sometimes that unconscious bias that I talked about, people start to give you that and they don't even realize it. So it's up to the leaders when things are happening. They must stand up for the women as well to say that is not tolerated, that's discriminating whether you realize it or not, but we should have an equal. And we talked about pay. What is it that we're gonna do to ensure that when women enter this industry, that they stay because they feel like they're being treated equally with their male counterparts? Okay.
I think you make a good point about demanding that when you're recruiting, not asking, demanding when you're the hiring manager that there be diversity of candidates, and I'll brag on Neil again. We used to do that, and I remember that's hard. That's hard to find women and people of color for those positions, but when that information or that directive comes from the top, it gets a lot easier. You know what I mean?
And sometimes you just gotta throw it back out. If you didn't get that good enough slate, just say, keep looking, keep sourcing, and get me, all of the candidates. And then sometimes it delays it, but it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to go back to some personal stories with you about your challenges and what strategies. Think of one big challenge in your career, and what strategy, and I hope it's a funny story, what strategy did you employ to get around that?
Challenges are rarely funny. Just saying.
Okay. Your tragic story.
So my not so tragic story is my biggest challenge a few years ago was going through the big band acquisition by Eris, and at the exact same time moving to a product management kind of job where I was being still based in Israel, where there's definitely obviously not the center of the company. So, the center of the company was in the US, in Atlanta. We were always a remote site, and I was always a remote person. And getting into a new company and into a new role simultaneously was, kind of a culture shock, right? Everything is different. You start working with different people. All the processes are different. But also, everything is remote. Everything is happening somewhere else where you're not at. So I traveled quite a bit, but my home is in Israel, and this is how it was, and this is how it is today. And I traveled back and forth, but there's a limit to how much you can travel, right? I put limits to myself, and my family is more important to me than anything in this world. So that was a big challenge for me, and I had to find ways to overcome this barrier. So what I used to do, and I still do these, is when I go abroad, I try to meet with as many people as I can, and try to talk to as many people as I can on different sites. That obviously triggers a very crazy schedule. Me being in a different state every day, having 2 dinners a night, and these kind of crazy schedules. But this has worked for me, and it's worked for me because every time I went to an engineering site or to one of our offices, I would just walk around, the office, introduce myself to people, asking them, hey, what do you do? What do you do? And this is how I bond, I created connections and sometimes even relationships, long-term relationships, that I could reach out to those people afterwards. A lot of people would tell me, hey, listen, yeah, it's good to know you. Yeah, let me know if you need anything. Let me know if you got a question. And I did. I had a lot of questions. And I was not afraid to call on those people. And, when they opened the door for me, I stormed right in. And I asked, as many questions as I could to learn everything I can about the company, about the industry, about, the job I need to do. And this is how I overcome this challenge of being remote. Because I asked questions when I was there, but then it was much easier for me to pick up the phone and call that person or send them a note or catch them the next time I'm there to, have them give me a training session about a subject I really wanted to learn on. So all of that together really helped me overcome this barrier and this challenge of getting into a new world and, ramp up fast with technology and on the company.
I would say my biggest challenge was then all of the consolidations and mergers. So I have 30 years on the books, and it says I have 30 years with Charter, but that's not true, right? I've only been with Charter for 18 months. So it's multiple consolidations and mergers. Continental Cablevision to Media One to AT&T to Comcast to Time Warner, and now to Charter. And I think every single company was very different with respect to culture, to process policies, whether or not they were centralized or decentralized. So it was all, and working through all of those and learnings through that. I think, some of the strategies that I learned early was make sure that you speak up and that the new owners are very clear on where you want to be in the new organization. Make sure they're very clear on how your operating performance has been, that they're very clear on how great your team is. Really do not be shy. Get out there and really make sure that they understand who you are, what you want, and what you can contribute to the new company. So, but that by far, it's because you're always kind of in a state of flux until they really figure out what the organization's going to look like. So I think getting very, very comfortable with change and uncertainty, and in that gray, it was some coaching I got in the early 2000s. Debbie, you've got to be comfortable working in the gray, and I think that was probably the biggest thing I learned for us.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing we sure have.
Yes.
Change is a constant. And I would recommend to everybody the books by William Bridges about change, about going from the beginning to the neutral zone to the end. His writing has helped me immensely as you go through this. And to look at the neutral zone as a place of excitement and challenge, rather than as what's going to happen to me and fear, but to know your worth and ask for it. Yep.
Make it clear.
Make it clear.
I think for me, when I go back to the biggest challenges, it's probably when I first entered the industry, because being a female in the industry was pretty much unheard of. And I always had a challenge where we would go to meetings, no one would hear what I had to say. It was like I was this little mouse, no one can hear me. Or I would make a statement or opinion, my male counterparts would not listen to anything. They didn't value because they thought I was too young and I didn't have enough experience. So I felt frustrated, defeated. But one thing I knew is I had worked too hard in school, and I was determined that I was going to make something of myself. So what I started to do was, you'll be surprised when you get to know people on a personal level, what that does. I started talking to my male counterparts. And the one thing that I know that every man loves is football, and I love football. So I started talking to them about their personal life, their family. When we would have meetings, at the end of every meeting, what could I have done differently? What could I have done? And one of the things that was told to me is that you have great ideas, but sometimes you come off very rough and aggressive. And during that time, I thought I had to, because I needed people to hear me. And the biggest thing the greatest thing for my career was, I learned what a mentor was. And my very first mentor was a male who had given me the opportunity to enter into the industry. And when he and I sat down, he said, "Are you surprised that I hired you?" I said, "I really am." He said, "Tanya, my wife and I are hippies. We don't see color, we don't see race, we don't even care about gender. You are the best qualified, and I see something in you that I know that you're going to be a success no matter what you do." And that stays in the back of my mind whenever I feel defeated or I can't accomplish something, because I know at the end of the day, I am going to make it.
That's inspiring.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Very nice. That's very nice. And look at this outfit, ladies and gentlemen. Right? So here's my little story. We had a leadership coach in with our operations team. I was the only woman. And the first thing, we were asking for feedback, the first thing she said to me, well, you did have on a yellow shirt as opposed to black and gray. And so I just love this, that we've got color going on here. It's nice, very nice. Although I do tend to black myself. You do too, Debbie. I know.
It's black and gray.
Exactly. So talk to me about your technical skills versus your leadership skills. Because we're here at CTE, which is all about technical skills. WIPT is really primarily about leadership skills, but how do you blend those two, and what's your formula for that? Is one more important than the other?
Definitely not. I think the combination is what gets you far. The main focus for me from the technical perspective is, as I said earlier, I do like to ask questions. So curiosity to me is the key. Go out there, find out everything you think you want to know or you may need to know later on. Just ask as many questions as you can. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't be afraid to ask questions or look down, because everybody, we're born with this kind of knowledge in their head. So, use the open door. If somebody opens the door for you, hey, let me know if you want to learn more about this, go after that and ask them about it. Take notes, learn, study, evolve yourself this way. That's my major focus when I think about what's the kind of line that connects all the things that I've done, all the achievements that I've made. On the leadership skill point, I'm a great believer in communications. I take the time to make notes, share them with the team. I think one of my roles in my job is actually to share the information with the rest of the organization. Because I go to events, I talk to customers, I talk to vendors, I talk to other people, and if I don't bring in this information from the entire industry back into the organization, then why am I here? So, in terms of leadership skills, I think we need to educate our teams. I think every engineer in our team needs to understand what the customer wants in the end, what is the end goal for the industry. If they know what we're targeting, they will do a better job in what they do as an engineer, as a product manager, as an operation guy, as even finance. If they understand the greater context, just because I communicated it well and explained it in such a way they can understand, like Rachel did earlier, this is the key to growing a successful organization and growing the people that are part of that organization.
I would agree, and actually on the technical skills, very much the same thing. I don't think there are any dumb questions, right? So I lead technicians, so I have about 5,000 technician supervisors, obviously the entire teams, maintenance, fulfillment, construction. I've not done these jobs before, right? So it's getting out there and making sure that you're doing ride-alongs, that you're going out understanding what their day-to-day looks like, and having key resources that you count on to ask questions. And I've got two people that I'm constantly leaning on. Scott Stinson's my VP of Regional Engineering, and Mike Snyder, I've worked with for years. I will go in and say, okay, dumb it down for me. Here, I want a little bit more knowledge on this topic, dumb it down for me. And don't be afraid. You don't need to know everything. Even though I'm leading these groups, I don't need to know everything, but I do need to know what I don't know, and I need to be able to ask those questions. So that's on the technical side. On the leadership side, I am huge on development and making sure that I am continuously providing constructive feedback, both good and bad. I typically will do it real time. When I see an opportunity, I will pull somebody aside and say, here's the opportunity. So by far, I think my main focus on leadership is really developing people and making sure that they continue to move up. And I am extremely proud of the teams and seeing a lot of my teams move on, and I'm having to backfill them because they're being promoted, and I love it. That's kind of what I'm here to do.
And we haven't even started to talk about millennials.
Yeah.
Development. Great. What are your resources? I mean, you've talked about them a little bit, the people around you, the communications. Are there other resources that you can look at in in your job?
Yeah, I think definitely. I network with a lot of our corporate engineers, spend a lot of time with those groups to make sure that you're understanding the complete end-to-end of our business. Our business is changing drastically with all of the new products. When we came in, we were just offering 40 channels of video, and obviously now we're offering the world. So I think it's making sure that you are networking with all aspects of the industry, not just what your maybe functional side is.
That's a great point. I think the most meaningful resource that I have always used is mentoring, both formal and informal. So going up to somebody, asking them questions, not necessarily, asking them, can you be my mentor? That helps a lot, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can walk up to somebody, hey, listen, I got this project, I need another advice on, I need another eye on this one. I need somebody to tell me how to deal with this, difficult situation. I need to understand what is the path getting from here to there. So, mentoring both, again, formal and informal has made a huge difference to me personally and also in my career. And it's really important, I think, to keep your mentors diverse as possible. So, different functions, different organizations, different backgrounds, right? Somebody who was a literature teacher has taught me a great lesson just recently. My mom is always a great mentor to me, so use whoever you can. Your friends, your family, people at work, even people that work in complete, remote sites with different cultures, they will give you an amazing, insight into what you do that you would never think of yourself. So that's made a real great difference for me.
I think for me, it's a combination. First and foremost, I rely on my faith a lot because we're in an environment and industry that sometimes you just need to take a step back and just really focus on all the positives because we can get hung up on the negatives. So really relying on my faith, as these young women have said, the mentors. It is critical that when you feel you can't do something or you need a sounding board, that you have those sponsors and those champions that you can go to. And don't be afraid to be your authentic self. I think sometimes as women, we try to put on a facade. It's taxing, it's tiring when you can't be your authentic self.
Definitely.
And really hanging out with just friends and doing things that make you feel good sometimes to get away from the day-to-day, whether that's, having a glass of wine or doing yoga, whatever that is, because sometimes we forget about the work-life balance, and I'm very guilty of that as well.
Me too.
One of my dear friends, many years ago, a person of color, and he used to tell me that when he walked in the door, he would drop down his mask. I just thought that was so sad and so tiring. And indeed, he left the industry. But genius, we lost something there. He was wonderful, but he was clear about that. So to your point, Tanya, stepping back, breathing, I think that's called yoga. Great. I have some more questions here, but I think we will, if you don't have any, I have more, but let's take some questions from the audience. Becky, do we have, great.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi.
Great panel, great discussion. I have a quick question. As I walk the floor this year, and maybe because I'm getting older, I pay more attention to it. And it's great to see some young people in the room. But one of the things that has been the discussion of myself and a lot of people is the age of the floor is concerning me. There's all of us who have been in the industry for a long time, and I guess the question is to Tal, because I consider you the new class.
I'm almost in my life.
How do we get more young people? What is your view after having been in this? We've heard from Dr. Burke, but your view, having been in our industry for a while now, how do we attract younger people from your view?
It's a problem. It's not easy, I must admit. We struggle with that internally in Aries, and also with the Aries Women Business Network. We want to see how do we do that. And it's tough because the cable industry doesn't seem very attractive to the young generation, to be honest, right? I think what we can do is, your first obvious answer is to provide the conditions of work that people of young age expect. So having an office in the center of the city and having approachable locations that they can just take their bikes to, etc. And creating a fun working environment is a big thing with millennials, with young people. I think showing the value of developing new things, creating new things, is something that will attract the younger generation. I don't think we do that enough in the cable industry. It always seems like kind of a legacy type of industry. And the fact that we provide internet service and high-speed data, voice, video to so many people throughout the world, allowing people to actually get their degrees online, get their education that they would have not done that otherwise. This provides meaning to my work personally. And we don't emphasize that enough. And the young people actually are looking for this kind of meaning, to feel like they're doing something to change the world, right? I think this is a big thing that will attract more young people to the industry.
Oh, that was excellent. I'm taking notes. Fun working environment. I'm teasing you, but that was great. Who else?
Hi, I'm Agnes Delphine from Cox Communications. And to Dr. Burt's point, representation matters. And I wanted to congratulate you on the panel because there's representation on so many dimensions. I was at SCT in Philadelphia last year. I Tech It Out, that was my first year. And I can see some adjustments being made this year, so congratulations to the panel. To my question, what do you see as the major headwinds as we continue to try to move the needle in getting more women in the workforce? And specifically, making sure that we identify other dimensions of diversity that are not so visible, such as language diversity, as you're hearing from me, such as we talk about cultural diversity, but there's so many others that has to have intentionality behind it. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, I think the headwinds are out there, in our society, right? I mean, if you look at the roles that women have played in board of directors in the past 20 years ago, and the number of them now, we're going the right direction. We're just not going there fast enough. The problem is that we need to get more women in management roles. We need to get more women in technical roles. And I think raising the awareness, talking about it more, again, creating the support groups to encourage that and remind our higher management team that they need to hire more women and they need to promote more women, not just because they're women, just because they're worth the promotion. Getting rid of this unconscious bias that everybody has, including us, right? These are the keys that to our success in growing more women in the industry.
Yeah, and I think, WICT and a lot of the development programs that they offer huge help, making sure that we're taking advantage of those within our companies. Very, very critical, I think, as we move in. But I think it is, making sure we're holding our executives accountable to really looking at the best candidate, but making sure that they've got a really clean slate of all diversity, women, people of color.
All diversity.
Yeah.
LGBT background.
Everything.
Culture,
Yeah.
speech,
Emphasizing the power of diversity is a big thing because people don't really understand that there is actual revenue increase when you become a more diverse company.
That's right.
All the studies been studied over and over again. A more diverse board of director makes the company more successful. A more diverse engineering force makes the innovation stronger. Ideas come from different directions that you wouldn't expect them. It just reinforces the basic capability of the company and makes it stronger in so many different ways.
Exactly. Another question. Not trying to avoid you over here. Was there a question over here too? Want to line up? Okay. left microphone.
Thank you for taking my question. My question is about the recent investigation into Google and their hiring practices. They identified issues with, pay gap. They also identified issues with prevailing tendency in tech companies to put women into roles where they're less likely to be promoted. So first question, do you think that is an issue for our industry as well? And if so, what can we do about that?
I would say I think our industry has gotten a lot better over the years. It hasn't always been there. But I think as females, this goes back to us having a voice. When you identify that you're in a role that you don't really have any opportunities, you must seize your own career. No one can tell you the next step to make. You have to identify that this is not the right role for me. Speak up, find out where you want to be, most importantly, because don't just make a move because you're frustrated, but you really need to think about making a move that's going to benefit your life and your long-term goals. And just really being that voice again. If you know that there's no avenue and no room for growth, it's really time for you to start looking into other avenues. And if that doesn't mean the company you're with doesn't promote it, maybe you're just in a team where there isn't any more opportunity for you to grow.
I would agree, and I think one of the things I know I do in my region, when anybody is being hired into promoted or hired into a supervisor or above position, I look at all of the salaries of those individuals to make sure I'm clearly understanding exactly where that person's coming in versus everybody else that's in the based on tenure and all of the other things, but really making sure that we're paying fair wage coming in to the company. The other thing that I do find sometimes with women is sometimes they don't necessarily see their full value. Like they sit back, and sometimes as leaders, we have to kind of identify them and work with them so that they can see their potential as well. And I know that we've got a couple of examples of actually men in the field that have, seen female technicians and see that they would be great in supervisor positions or manager positions. That female tech didn't see that in themselves, but have worked to really get them up. We've got one that was a supervisor. She was a technician for probably about 5 years, became a supervisor, and just recently became a manager. But again, she just didn't see that even that first step. And one of my male colleagues took it upon himself to, help her and actually help her with the interview, all of the things just to get her that first confidence. The second time for the manager position, she didn't need that help. She just needed that first little push.
And I believe statistically, although still not great, but I believe our industry tops Google and Facebook in terms of their gender equity.
I would say be accountable for your career. Don't feel like everything is, something is dictated from above. Be sure that you are where you want to be. Be sure that you've considered other options. Know that it's your job to make your impact and be happy with the job that you have. That you're happy to go to work every day. This is the most important thing. That you're responsible for that personally.
You have to love what you do. We spend way too much time at work not to absolutely.
Wouldn't you love to work for these three women? Great. More questions? Yes, sir.
Actually, we'll use this mic. This is a good mic.
This is my Scott Stinson. I just mentioned him. He's my name.
So since she called me, I'm gonna call her out. Everything that she says is true. She lives it. When I got the announcement back last September, when she announced her new leadership team, she had the word in there, and we're proud of our diversity. I took it home and showed my wife, and I said, I haven't seen this in a long time. I think I'm at the right place. It's been over a year, and I know I'm at the right place. I almost didn't figure my question. So, there are three things that I've always thought were key in my career. I found out early on, and it was ensuring that you deliver above and beyond. And you guys are here, so I know you're delivering above and beyond. It's making sure that you're getting along with others, because your career is not based on what you do; it's based on how you interact with others. And then the third is making sure that others see it. And so my question to the panel is, do you see what I've seen a lot of your career. And I want to preface this with something that a high-level VP said to me not too long ago about this industry. He said, you know, this is just an industry full of BS. I said, what do you mean? And he said, people come into a room and they BS you first, and then you get to the facts. And the only reason I say that out loud is that one thing I've noticed, that I noticed with my wife, is that women tend to be very precise, at least in my southern, I started the industry in '85, long time ago career, about what they can do. And men tend to pound their chest, even when they can't do it. So my question to you is, how do you promote that humble chest pounding? And what do you even think about that? Has that been a part of your success, that humble chest pounding? Because otherwise, I think you end up getting overlooked. So that's my long question.
Well, that's a great question.
So I'm
Humble chest pounding. Panel?
That's one of the key leadership traits I say is having humility. It takes a lot to have that humility, and what I mean by that is people can't get so above themselves because of their title that they can't do the job of their employees. And you don't have to boast about what you're doing because others see it by the way that you lead the teams, how you're grooming your leadership to get to the next level. Who is gonna be that next person that's gonna be the you? So you do have opportunities to go to the next level. If you don't have that, you don't have to boast. And I get what you're saying, because oftentimes you do see the males boast about what they've done. But you don't have to, because people are always watching and they see what you do, and they know when you really truly have passion about something versus when you're just doing something for show.
Yeah, I'm guilty as charged. I do that. I've been doing, I've done that mostly in my early days when I had to compete with a bunch of other guys, for attention, for focus, for sometimes, deals in the business. So I had to do that. I had to be like them because that's how you go, right? That's how you roll. So I've done this in the past. I don't like it, but I had to play ball. What I think is that in time it just is becoming redundant, right? Your actions, your speech is speaking for you. Your sometimes reputation would speak for you, and you stop needing to do that. I think that a big thing is to change the culture of our organization such that we don't need to do that anymore. So being able to bring up even the quieter people in the room, this is something that it's a management skill, right? And it's also an organizational culture. If you enable everybody to speak, everybody in the room to speak, you're already allowing for the quieter people not to boast or, to pound on their chest, but just to say what they do. So it takes a good manager to do that.
And I think we are such a metrics-driven company that a lot of times the numbers just speak for themselves. As far as boasting in a humble way, I think it's all about the team. And I don't think you're really just sharing your results. You're sharing what the team has accomplished. And whenever I'm talking about our overall results, it's not about me. It really is about what the team achieved together. This isn't about numbers.
I think a little humble chest pounding is a good thing. Really, how many times have you, men and women, been in a meeting and you say something and then the person next to you says it 5 minutes later and that was applauded and you were ignored? And so I really do think that you use your voice and speak up. Not all the time, but you do speak up for yourself and for your team. Because as you rise up in the ecosystem, you have people that you're promoting. So you have to speak up for them. But I think a little chest pounding is good. Who else? Oh, please. A repeat questioner, excellent.
This one's more for Debbie. What scares you the most, or what troubles you the most that we're not addressing as we approach the next 5 to 10 years? there's a lot of technology coming our way. What is the one thing that we need to do in your mind to move our teams? And what bothers you the most about where we are today and where we're going?
Most. I think it's making sure everybody is ready for all of the change that's coming, right? When I look at overall everything that we're doing today, and we talked a lot over the last couple of days about network and telemetry and being able to see everything from the back end, I think it's making sure that everybody understands how that works, down to the operations groups, right? So a lot of that stuff right now is still sitting up kind of in that engineering array, right? Which is your corporate, maybe your divisional offices, but we need to get that, I think, down to the field as well, that education on exactly what we have ahead of us. I think that's gonna be big for us. Huge.
Final question, 30-second speed answer. What can the audience do to drive inclusion? What would you tell them?
I would say mentor. Find somebody young and thriving and just mentor them. I think it will enrich you as much as it will help them.
Yeah, and if you're a leader, do focus groups, do skip levels, really get out there and understand, what's getting in the way of employees doing their job and being able to do their job. What is it that we need to do for women technicians so that they feel comfortable sitting in a room, one woman to 500 technicians? What more do we need to be doing there? And having those sit downs and those honest conversations.
And also, you mentioned the mentor and having the honest conversation, but women need to uplift each other. Sometimes you may just walk by someone and say, oh, nice outfit today. You never know what that can do for a person for the day. Learn to uplift.
Yeah, nice yellow blouse. Sure, we'll take one.
Thanks so much for the time today. It's wonderful and great learning. Spoke a little bit about the young adults and the teenagers. So us as parents and leaders, what do you think the best tools, tips, techniques, and et cetera that we could use in the next 5-10 years, both for women and young men?
As a parent?
Yeah, as both a parent and industry leaders, what are the best things we could look to be involved, share with both young men and young women?
I think reaching out to your local Y, your local colleges, finding out what programs that they have on the weekend that will encourage other younger children to come. And you may have friends, nieces, nephews, sons, daughters. As you're looking at things on TV, spark their interest by having the conversation and the things that they can become. Because when you look around, technology it's our future, it's our world. We have self-driving cars now. Tell those young kids that you can invent something like this. Start to spark their interest, because a lot of times it's not that they're not interested. No one ever sparks the conversation with them.
Great, thank you.
I would say
Yes,
also,
please.
yeah, sorry. I would say just tell them morning and night they can do everything they want to.
Great. We have a networking session after this, and I see some really great leaders out here in the audience. Many of you. So besides these 3 lovely women, there's many people to mentor and talk with you, and so let's get at it after we thank our panel.